Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for May 30th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher moderating. Ralph Kohler is sharing their screen, and Simo Helston is also here. Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks. We're looking again at issue number 3511972. Allow compose and rsync location to be configured via the UI. I'll simply go into the page again where we've already taken a look at last week. Yeah, to briefly recapitulate is that is basically under configuration, system, package manager settings. We have that one, and we also have on the status reports page an entry for Composer. As you can see here, and just to illustrate, I quickly move use the local bin composer to composer. If we reload that, then you can see composer was not found. The error message was failed to run process. And the path to the composer can be configured in settings form. If we go there, then yeah. The auto detection is, I'm not sure, on that page. On the status reports page, it's on point, but on here I have mixed results. Because at the moment it should be compose error, but it is showing that basically composer is still in place. And I quickly also rename rsync to rsyncer. To illustrate the other problem, I've already created a follow-up issue for that, because if we go on here, no, that's oh, the status reports page, we still only have the composer version with an error, but the corresponding check for rsync is missing. There is none in place. So that would be a good thing from my point of view, and to make it analogous to the composer check. And if it's rsync is not found, then also provide a link to the settings form. So yeah, that's it for now. Any questions?
So those strike me as generic bugs, not particularly usability related.
Yep.
I think the usability questions on this issue had to do with how to inform the user of whether something was automatically detected or not. Um, Maybe that was it. And I think an earlier version um, put added something in the text area. It said paren automatically detected, close paren or something like that. And that has been changed in the current version. So, you know, are there remaining usability questions, or assuming that the generic bugs are fixed, do we like having it in the status message?
Is that status message something that tells you about the current state, or is it a message about when the status is updated? So is that a permanent?
I believe it's permanent. That's what it looks like to me.
It's both. It shows you if you updated something, but it also shows you the state if you get to the page.
So
And is it a
if you enter
is it a
Composer and rsyncer, and save the form. Go ahead, Simo.
Yeah. So it doesn't. It only says that it was saved, so it doesn't change. So it's the status is the same, uh, even if you change it. It doesn't change the status message. And if the another question, if those are not automatically detected, uh, is that a failure? Because here we have a success message. Is it a failure if they are not automatically detected? Or should that be a neutral message? So there
That's
is a success message and an error message
yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah, last time we had a warning and a success message.
Yeah, I don't think we have a distinction between a status message and an info message, do we?
No, I don't think so.
So we have warnings, errors, and success
Right.
only.
Or status or a green, that's something like that. Yep.
All right. So I would say it's clearly better to have the information in the status message than in the text area. Um, but Simo, I guess you're asking, could we come up with a better place to put it? Um, for example, I think it would not be too hard to add the information to the help text or the description text underneath the text field. Would that be a better place to put it than a status message?
Um, I wonder one other thing. Would it even necessary to have something like it, the path to composer was automatically detected? Wouldn't it be enough simply to have the same status check we have over here for composer and ideally rsync at one point to have simply a green check mark or that everything is okay? And for me, it's more important if anything goes wrong, then having a warning, then it's okay. But out of the box, having a status message, I haven't done anything. So it feels a bit odd to come to a page to get already a status message with was automatically detected. I ask myself, when I'm on other pages, is it then also automatically detected, or it feels sort of odd and makes me think.
Yeah. Can you go back to the issue for a minute?
Uh, yeah, yeah.
So the proposed resolution, add a UI to the paths to Composer and rsync to be configured and link this UI if Composer cannot be found or out of date. Okay, so before this issue, this whole form, what wasn't there?
No.
Um, and the user interface changes. As far as we know, core doesn't have any other place where you can configure the path to an executable. So this is sort of new. Okay, so that the long paragraph under user interface changes isn't really part of the user interface changes. I would say it belongs under proposed resolution. And because this issue isn't specifically about the usability question we're discussing, it doesn't say anything. But I guess I would like the proposed resolution to say when these information messages appear and when they don't. Um, for example, if you haven't saved the configuration form, the configuration is probably empty. Or is that the case, or does it have some default value?
It is the default value is basically the auto-detected one. So it is filled and pre-populated in any way.
Language question. Was it automatically detected or is it automatically detected? So it uses past tense.
Oh, should be was or is. So I guess I'm thinking that once you submit the form and actually have configuration saved, we should not have a message about it being automatically detected because now it's using the configured value.
Yeah.
And I guess we should go back to basics. What is the purpose of this message? What action are we supposed to take based on it? Why do we need it at all?
Yeah. That's my point basically about the automatic. In the case of that path, I'm only interested in if something goes wrong and is missing or outdated and action is needed. But otherwise,
One thing, it could indicate that this is not an existing setting. So, or is it an existing setting? If you don't press save and export configuration, does the information go to the, or is this stored as configuration so that exporting and importing configuration will maintain the values that are shown here, even if you don't click save? Is it detected before you open this form?
Yeah, I've have my own installation of Drupal running, and even with Ralph's help, I wasn't able to find this page, so I certainly haven't submitted it. And when I use Drush to inspect the package manager.settings, it says composer null, rsync null. So, so I think that answers my question, which is related to Simo's question, that initially we don't have default values, we have empty values.
So that status message would be relevant so that the user knows that there is something added.
Right. So the values in the text box in that case will be the automatically detected ones. And then if the user saves the configuration, I would say the message should go away. Go ahead, Ralph.
uh, but one question then, if those two values are null, and if a user is not going to that page, uh, is package manager then working at all?
I imagine that it will work without configuration if the automatically detected paths are valid.
Okay, then you have basically one variable for those default paths, and as soon as it's updated, then those are ignored and the ones used set in here are used.
So here's a suggestion. Um, Instead of using a status message or inserting additional text underneath the two text boxes. What if we added a text area, so a markup form element rather than an input form element, and use text something like currently using these paths, user local bin composer auto detected, user bin rsyncer paren configured, and then had the form elements to change them if necessary. Would that be clearer? Would that be confusing?
3 seconds. You mean adding basically that sort of status path on top what is currently used?
Yes, but not in a status message, just in,
Yeah, not in a status message, but in a field set or however it's displayed or
right. So have just regular text showing the current status, and then the form elements to update that status or to update the configuration. And then instead of pre-filling the text boxes with the auto-detected values, leave them blank if they're blank.
yeah. And it might have the advantage in case you add a bespoke path with a bespoke name. And if you remove that, then it basically moves back to the default value. And you can see it on top. And then you can, for example, yeah, provide an error or like something like that. And maybe if if we go with that kind of version, text-based version, then you could also still add some sort of green check mark saying, yeah, that path and file name is available and functioning. So everything is okay.
By the way, if it doesn't find it, was it able to save the incorrect uh, path? Did it allow saving it? It had error message and it was marking the field. So it doesn't save this because this is something that might be really problematic because, or not really problematic, just problematic because a person might set up site on their local machine that doesn't have the same paths as another environment, maybe production server. So then you can do it from the like the configuration files or settings overrides, but I think not being able to detect this shouldn't block saving a form. It should be more of information.
Oh, that's interesting. So for example, in a common workflow, you configure things and save configuration on local, and then push those configuration changes to production. And the current way it works um, invalidates that workflow. Um,
Well, async and composer, on the other hand, they probably are available. But there might be some special cases where they are installed differently, but then I guess it's up to the developer to configure them in settings overrides per environment. But then if it's different paths for whatever reasons between the different environments, then another thing where it comes up is when you're syncing the database or something like that. But then again, it should be in the file system so that you can import the configuration for that environment or use overrides.
Right. So, I guess there are two workflows. One is to use configuration, and the other is only to use config overrides and just in your settings.php say, if this is the local environment, then use this path, and if this is the production environment, use that other path. So 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 one possibility is to only let these be set in settings.php as config overrides. And the other option is to let people use the configuration form and copy the database from local to prod or from prod to local or just the configuration management. So either we should allow them to submit the form with any value we like so that when it's deployed to the other environment, it'll work, or we should not have the form at all and require them to use settings.php. Does that make sense?
And there's also config split.
Yes.
Uh,
And for example, the fact that you cannot submit this form without valid paths makes the config split workflow also harder.
yeah.
So if we put this together with the previous idea that we sort of have the status information and then the form, then we can let them submit the form and have some warnings in the status information part of the page, but let them submit the form however they like.
We have any other configurations forms where we are not allowed to submit incorrect information?
Um, if you configure a file field with some ridiculously large file size, does it stop you from doing that? Um, configuration forms that get validated.
I think one we could check is the file system path, either private or public.
So I think the option to use private files is visible but disabled if you have not configured the private file system.
Um,
Yeah, private file system path is not set on this install yet.
that would be all in config, like in the settings.php.
Mm, where's my, oops. What do I have to add there?
I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. What are you asking?
I was asking what I have to add in the settings PHP for the private file
Oh, give me a second.
system.
Settings of file underscore private underscore path.
File, file path. But yeah, okay. And which path shall I add there?
You have to have some valid directory. Um, I think it still lets you use your public files directory slash private. Um,
Yeah, no, I meant, but in the context of the package manager settings, what Simo wanted to test, that was.
I was thinking if it allows to configure that path from the uh, from the admin UI.
Ah,
so I'm configuring a file field and I put in a maximum upload size of 500 gigabytes and it let me save that. It let me allow SVG file extensions. Um, so I I think there isn't any validation on any of the fields for an image field.
um, that goes into the direction of the issue I've mentioned on our Slack chat with the text formatted short where I've tested. And this way, at this, because as you can see here, I've added a maximum length larger than the max for the field. And if I file, it works, but it gets reset and might be the same for the other fields you've tried. That those 500 gigabyte got reset to a
No,
smaller value. No? Oh. Oh. And one question regards of that file private path setting. That path, is it the path inside the web container?
Um, let's see,
So
I think you're expected to use an absolute path, but I think that if you use a relative path, it's relative to the Drupal root.
okay. Oh, default files, and there's no private. I create a private. So that way,
Yes.
okay. So then I save. Um, Copy the rsyncer to oh. Okay. Okay.
So I'm not sure what you're thinking about now, Ralph.
I'm just trying to copy basically the composer and rsync into the private um, folder.
I think we don't need to do that.
Ah, so okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought. Okay, then what else shall I test?
Um, a- at this point, I don't think we need to be testing anything.
Okay.
I think we should just say how we think it should work. Um, and so I think at this point we have two recommendations. The first is that you let the site admin enter whatever they want in these fields. And the second is that instead of having information in the status message, have it in a regular text field.
Yep. And oh, I've posted the link to the other issue I've created. That is basically adding the rsync analog to Composer.
Right.
That would be necessary for that approach here as well, because otherwise Composer couldn't, rsync couldn't be shown. Only Composer.
Okay. Are we done here? Are there still any open questions? Do we want to come up with the exact interfaced text of the additional field or leave that for the developers?
I guess there shouldn't, and there isn't much text there, a need for much text there. It would be simply the same as on the status reports page. Composer version, the version, and the path that is currently used.
And I think the version might be helpful on this page as well as on the status page, but um, I don't feel strongly about whether the version information is here as well.
Me neither, but at least on the issue, it was mentioned that also in case of outdated versions, wasn't there? Outdated, yeah. Yeah, version was still out to date. Found. Yeah. Anyway. Also not a strong opinion about it from my end.
Okay. Then we're done.
Yeah.
Um, so where else can you leave a comment on the issue?
Oh, yeah. I just haven't made any notes. One sec.
I plan to leave for the weekend in a couple of hours, so I can do it when I get back, but I probably won't have time to do it today.
Text that off. Instead of status message. Leave the fields empty by default. On error. Yeah. And what was the other thing?
Um, Let the site administrator enter any value they want.
What was the reason behind? In case of config, that was the reason.
Right, they might want to enter on local a value that will be used on production.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So text instead of status message, leave the fields empty per default, and let the site administrator enter any value they might want to enter on local something that is used in production later on. Okay. Aside that, nothing else.
Okay. Um, Or maybe I'll share my screen. Um, okay, so we always have the link in the usability issues to needs review and RTBC issues that are marked for usability review. Um, and Ralph, I think you looked at this one recently. Disallow dangerous file names, e.g. command injection characters. Um, and we looked at this one, the current theme condition of a few weeks ago. I need to follow up on that. Um, shall we look at the dangerous file names issue?
Um, I haven't looked at it myself yet. I only posted it and set it on the to-do list.
No? Do you want to look at a different issue or shall we look?
Mm, we can look at it. I just wanted to say I'm not prepared for it. That's the only
Okay.
detail I wanted to say.
Well, we have almost 15 minutes left. Let's see what we can see. Following discussion with the Drupal security team, it was agreed this could be handled in a public security improvements issue. At present, Drupal's file API allows file names to be created which could be dangerous if they're not handled safely. This is not a directly exploitable vulnerability, but improvements could be made that would reduce the likelihood of file names being used as part of a chained attack. Command injection is a specific concern here, and some links to what command injection is. Steps to reproduce. In some cases, browsers will escape or encode certain characters in a normal file upload, but it may be possible to avoid that escaping using a tool like Burp Suite, blah, blah, blah. An example of a dangerous file name, which I believe a normal file field will currently accept, is foo quote semicolon echo space backtick who am I backtick semicolon space sharp.txt. Fairly recent improvement to file name handling, which we could build upon, is described in this change record. Let's have a look at the change record, at least the title. Um, New file name sanitization settings during upload via UI or REST. New sanitization event. Changes to file upload resource constructor. Okay, so the proposed resolution. One or more of always remove or replace specific characters that may be used for command injection. For example, double quote, semicolon, pound or octothorpe, whatever you want to call it, pipe, backtip, and if possible, single quote and ampersand. Disallow spaces by default in file names. Makes it quite a lot harder to achieve meaningful command injection. Review defaults for file name transliteration to make command injection as hard as possible. Remaining tasks, the user interface changes. And why was the usability tag added here? Needs review, needs review. Here we go. It's this comment number 23 that adds the needs usability review tag. I agree. It's likely stripping spaces from file name on uploads may not be universally welcomed. It would, however, have benefits in terms of security hardening. And he's acknowledging the comment in number 20. that if a command injection vulnerability of similar exists, this is not the only fix that's needed. There are other benefits like making it easier to iterate over batches of files in the shell, but that's out of scope. I personally loathe spaces in file names, but I'm probably not representative of a broad cross-section of users. I think that's fair. I think there's some consensus that stripping special characters from file names likely provides enough benefit in terms of security to outweigh annoyance some users may feel at having punctuation marks removed from their file names, but stripping spaces may be seen as a step too far. It could be a default that site owners could disable in the options. Previous comments include some light research on how other CMSs or frameworks do this. WordPress and Typo3 both strip or substitute most punctuation by default, and it looks like they both swap out spaces for either an underscore or dash. Drupal already has an option to replace white space in file names with underscore or dash, hyphen, but it's not enabled by default. I'd like to turn that on by default as part of this issue. What does the UX team think about having mandatory stripping of special characters from file names, plus enabling swapping spaces out by default? I've not yet updated the issue summary to eliminate any proposed options, as I don't think we've eliminated any yet. So I guess that's the question. Should we allow spaces? Should we replace them with underscores by default, but allow the site admin to override that?
I think we should have sensible defaults, but allow override. There might be some integrations that for some reason add some special characters to the file names, or if they are like so there might be some cases, but probably not so much. So it should be I think allowed to override, but with a warning about security. I think we have some of those somewhere. But my biggest concern, I think, is backwards compatibility. So what happens to the existing files? Is it supported everywhere? Is it only on upload? And what if a user uploads the same file again? Well, normally it doesn't replace the old one. It just adds underscore number. So that maybe isn't a problem with default settings.
Yeah, I'm just searching the page for the word existing. Existing functionality, existing options, existing options. So there's no discussion of what to do with files that have already been uploaded. So my guess is that this would only affect newly uploaded files, but that's just a guess.
Thing I wonder is, are there any user interface changes or any UI for adjusting?
Error messages, and then if there is override.
Okay, but you are unable to adjust those constraints. The question is simply, I was just looking in, I've checked out the branch, the merge request, and was looking if there are any changes in the UI.
I'm going to guess that they are not going to provide an admin form that this will have to be changed in settings.php.
Okay.
It's sort of a um, uh, well, I can't think of the metaphor that I'm looking for, but if you're allowed to change it through the user interface, that opens up the security hole again because someone just has to figure out how to change that configuration setting, and then they can defeat the security hardening. So it makes sense to um, only set it in settings.php. So if you've looked at the merge request, have they changed default.settings.php? Is there a draft change record?
Searching for default has no match.
Ha. The only change to configuration is file.settings, where we're changing the default. Um, a bunch of tests. And so, okay, there's a rather long list of special characters that are hard coded. You cannot add to or
Um,
or can't add to that list. You can't remove anything from that list. It's hard coded. The only thing you can change in configuration is whether to replace spaces.
Benji,
Yes,
may I quickly share my screen again?
of course.
Just to illustrate, I've just renamed one file and uploaded it. I've added a caret, or what is it? I don't know the word in English.
Shift 6.
No, that, 1 second. I'll post the file name in the chat I've used and, oops, show, there's again. I've added space and that one. And as you can see, your upload has been renamed to.
Right. So there are many names for that character. I think the most official one is Octothorpe, but it's also
Octothorpe.
called pound or hash or number
Ah, okay.
sign. So
Octothorpe, never heard of it. Yeah, but yeah, that way the feature takes in effect.
all right. So if the main usability question is whether to allow people to override it, um, Simo already said, and I think I agree, that we should use the more secure default. So by default, replace spaces, but let people override, and Ralph agrees. So we're unanimous on that?
Yep.
Okay.
But looks like a reasonable change, definitely.
Okay. 2 minutes left. Again, I will not be here next week. The Zoom link will be available. Any other parting words? All right then.
None from my end.
I'll be
Enjoy the
back in.
conference.
Thank you. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Bye bye. Have a nice
See you.
weekend.
Bye.